welcome to
G4C, a generation for Christ.
In today's generation, we're no longer taught to think critically. On this platform, we ask questions. Okay, guys, we know what's going on with George Floyd. We saw the murder, because it was a murder. The police officer who killed George Floyd. We all watched that video. It was really, really hard to watch for me. And my heart is still crying because now, look what's happening now. Because everybody went on the street to protest because of the injustices that we're seeing with the police brutality. And now, we saw something else happen with the riot. So now I'm confused. I don't know. I don't really understand what's going on now.
Yeah, I think the media did a great job in allowing us to emotionally respond to the scenario. And I'm just seeing, like Deb said, that was really bad. That was murder. There's no doubt that what that cop did was wrong. And we need to have justice for that specific situation and saying those cops need to be arrested. Those cops need to be charged. Absolutely. But our response to it, the peaceful protest, that's something that I can understand. But the looting, the violence, the destroying of the small businesses, the fact that people are being harmed, like why would that be a necessary response, or why are we assuming that that response is what it is that's going to get justice for George Floyd? And somebody could say, oh, we're looking for revenge and all that. You mean to tell me that the TV that you stole is justice for George Floyd? Floyd, that's the pile of clothes that you're stealing is justice for George Floyd? Like, no, come on, like that's irrational. Like we're not using logic anymore in this situation.
And I think we have to be careful, just as you were saying, to piggyback on what you said, that there is an emotional element, and it looks like we've been set up to react a certain way. I want to ask people questions. I'm not going to answer that for you. You go figure. Do you really think it's normal for a police officer abusing and killing somebody knowing it's being recorded, but he really does not care? And the other question that I have, do you really think it's normal for people video recording the event happening and they're not even attempting to even take a stone to just stone the guy? I mean, if you're going to riot, maybe you should have stoned that police officer right and then. Like all those questions are questions that we have to ask ourselves. Like, go back, watch the recording, what is really going on? And does that look normal to you?
But some people are saying, though, that the people that were recording, they were afraid for their lives because they knew the police officers had gun. So they were just making sure that they will have that in video, but they weren't really encouraged to go and attack the officer or to forbid him from doing what he was doing because they were scared. He had a gun.
It does not make sense. I mean, I think they're going to be as culpable as, I don't know, any person that killed him, because that's what we call non-assistance to people in danger. If I see somebody burning in the fire, I'm not going to take my iPhone. Hey, he's burning.
Right.
No, I'm going to call on another police to come and arrest the fake police that is committed or perpetrating this.
Or trying to defend or something, like take matters into your own hands.
I would take a stone and just stone them like right there.
They outnumbered like the police officers that were there. So they could have maybe called other people and then just
do something.
Like the force that they have now, the riots that they're doing now, they should have had that strength to do that then. I'm just like shocked by the death of George Floyd, but I think I'm like
more shocked.
More euthanized, but like how
it happened.
things shifted.
Oh,
just
yeah.
like that, it wasn't about the coronavirus anymore, just about the
Exactly.
riots and then the looters. Like,
Exactly.
That's a good point. What happened to coronavirus?
COVID is gone, guys.
Where is it?
Bye-bye,
and then the
coronavirus.
thing is like those riots are not productive. You're not helping. You're just destroying and then creating more like clash or like emptiness in our country and then hatred.
So now my question is, where are these rioters coming from? Like, literally, there are groups like Black Lives Matter that actually went out and were protesting, and then some white people even joined them to just make sure that, you know, we're with you, we are also fighting the same cause. And then all of a sudden, these people coming, a lot of people are saying that they're whites for the most part. People are calling them Antifa. Actually, it's declared it's an Antifa group, domestic terrorists. But where are they coming from? Like, how did this even happen? And why now? Why now? Why using the time where we were all mourning, we were all in pain, now to do those things? Now it's hard to distinguish what we're actually trying to achieve, which we should actually establish. What are we trying to achieve at this point? Now that this happened.
I'm just gonna say it was never about George Floyd to begin with. Just as it was never about the coronavirus to begin with. So people need to keep that in mind.
It's election year.
Yes.
People, some dark forces, the powers that be out there, they have an agenda, and then we just see it like more clearly with event after event. So I want people to open their eyes and start asking very critical questions. Look at the pattern. Look, it's always every year, election time, that the same thing happened. And as you were saying, the focus is already lost because people were crying for justice for George Floyd, but that now we have those rioters and not even protesters, rioters and thugs that are literally going and burning cities down, and we don't know why they're doing that, and they're not part of the protesters, that's for sure.
And we'll also acknowledge that, yes, just as you said, like there's particular people that are going out and that are causing the damage. We've seen the videos of, people who went out to peacefully protest, and you're seeing the peaceful protesters are recording the looters and the rioters, graffitiing, tagging stores, vandalizing, knocking down the windows of businesses. We're acknowledging that that's something that's true. But just as you said, like really ask, like, what is the agenda behind that? Because consider, there were bricks that were put in places that had no construction, that were meant to lure black people, like the black community, in to participate in this violence. Why?
I think some of them are also angry because of the lockdown due to the coronavirus. People lost their businesses, so I think that feeling of revenge, so they really want to steal stuff because they don't have money, they don't have jobs
So it's
anymore.
not about George Floyd anymore.
I think some of them was like really like revenge against or towards the system, like the government, what they did during this lockdown.
But we should still acknowledge though that police brutality, that was police brutality or racism, whatever you want to call it, but it happened. And there's something that needs to be done. Some people are saying that the rioters and the looters will end when justice is served, meaning people are literally expecting that police officer to go to jail. Some people are even saying him going to jail is not enough. Maybe you should have a death sentence or whatever. Do you really think that that's what needs to happen?
Yeah, I wanted to answer to that. So there is police brutality that happened. And I want to just, take kind of both sides and talk about them. I deplore and I condemn the side that is going to the extreme right, where they're just literally saying that police brutality is a myth. They're good people, they have good intentions, and maybe they just don't realize how they become as parrot. They're just, parodying some talking points that belong to the party that they're supporting.
They're too logical.
And then they're throwing a bullet of firecracks of facts and numbers. Like, please. We need to stay objective, but people are also mourning. People are suffering, they're hurting, they're in pain. And that pain, it's not George Floyd. That pain is a pain that started years and years and years before. And that's why now I'm going to deplore the other side, because that's hypocrisy. If you have a problem with the police, you don't wait until they kill George Floyd for you to go on the street and march. You have to be there. There are 365 days in a year, You have to be there some of those days or every day of that year.
Until you see
and
the
then
change.
protest. But you have to protest for something that is objective, which is police reform. But you have to come up with ideas on how we can change the police. I just read a tweet from a podcaster that said one of the ways to have police reform is to do away with the unions. Because the unions are the ones who make it so hard to fire any police officer. So now, who passes the laws for the unions? Who do the unions really support? What politician from what side of the political sphere? And then why is it so hard to do away with them? So I'm going to tell black people, you are the ones who vote for those people and you know them. And then they need the unions because the unions are there to support them. So I'm going to ask you, do you want freedom? Do you really want police reform? or do you just want to be out there and then do as if you want to change, but
Yeah.
you're not ready to pay for that change? That's my question.
And you know what? I think we also need to recognize and be able to differentiate what abuse of power is versus racism. And I think we have a hard time putting those two aside because we've already put them together. So specifically in this George Floyd case, we see this and we automatically assume this was a racist act because a white cop killed this black man. I feel like we have to keep acknowledging that this was something that was not right. Like we agree that justice needs to be served, but we also cannot assume the intention of the cop or the motive of the cop and say that it was racially motivated because we don't know. What we can say and do and what we are able to kind of show through a test of time is that police abuse their power.
Yes.
And that's something that we have to recognize, but that's something that is not, that we always have to point the finger as far as racism and make it a racist problem. It's an abuse of power problem. And just as Esther said, like kind of digging deep and understanding, okay, now let's go back and see what we can do about this. Let's go back and see what we need to do about reforming the police system and the police
So
department.
that's the real problem. It's the police reform that we need actually, because we see the police brutality happening. There's not just George Floyd. We've seen a lot of black people die, and black people now are just scared, especially the men, to go out or to do things because they just feel like they will be killed. Anytime they go out, they will be killed.
Moreover, like someone said, if you want to see the change in this world, be the change. So don't just talk. We need change. Black Lives Matter. Like, be the change. Do something. Go and then be a police officer to show them actually how it's done. Because you guys say that black have power. Black are this and that. But
King
and queens. Go and then show them how it's done. How do you run a community? How do you run a city? And then they can learn from you. I think we are afraid, just like we were afraid to step in and then defend George Floyd. We're just like that
And
and
then
then filming,
videotaping.
videotaping. No, but we're not afraid to go and then loot and then riot. We are afraid to go and then take action and then succeed because most people are afraid of success. They're not afraid of failure. They're afraid of success because with success comes responsibility, and then people look at you like they put you on high standards.
And to add to that, there is really that cry for more black police officers because what has been reported is black people are not willing to sign up for the police and then patrol their own neighborhoods. I know they don't want to be confounded or associated with the bad image or the bad portrayal that police officers have, but at the same time, what is it that you want? Don't you want your people to stop dying in the hands of police officers? You know, so just go and sign up to become a police officer and patrol your own community. That is a way for you to just stop that crime one and for all. Because if we make it a law, actually, and I think at this point I'm just willing to advocate for that, that only black people will patrol black communities so that we can stop with this narrative and this nonsense. I mean, for me, it's just ridiculous at this point because there are easy ways, maybe not easy, but maybe simple ways where we can just take action and then try to remedy as much as possible. Get more black people to enroll, to sign up to become police officer. And if they don't want, maybe force them at this point. Because you, the black man, you have to take responsibility for your women, for your children.
And then I have like an example for that. Like there was a police officer who came to try to talk to like black students to recruit them for being like to be a police officer or like to be in the military, things like that, like law enforcement. And then of course we couldn't avoid to talk about police brutality because that's what we live today. And then beyond that or after that, the police officer was telling them, but that's why we need you guys. We need you to come and then give those ideas that you have. Those are not bad ideas. You want to like to see a change. You have good ideas, but come and then work with us. But they were all silent. They didn't react after that because I think that's what we need to do now. Take action.
So I heard 2 points from you guys because we're already talking about solutions. We're trying to solve this problem because hating, looting, rioting, it's not gonna change anything. We need to take action. And one of the action is you yourself go sign up and be the police officer to patrol your community. If you want less white cops in your community, then be the black cop. But other solutions also are the Congress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guys, like, I don't know how many young people out there even know about this,
Yeah.
that the laws that are being signed or being voted upon in Congress are actually against us, the
Yeah.
black
Yeah.
people. And who are the people voting for them?
Yeah.
We all know who. But we keep voting for them. They've been in power for decades.
Yeah.
So now it's time to take them out. Vote them out. Go run for office. You can do it. There's a way for you to do it. You know, we have young women now as congresswomen. I'm not gonna say any names. We know who they are. And sometimes I wonder, how did she get there? When I hear
Yeah.
her talk, I'm like, how did she get to be a
Something's not right up
congresswoman?
here.
She's almost my age. So what is it that I don't have
Yeah.
to actually go and run for office?
Yeah.
So I'm just encouraging you. If you're that upset at this point, you're that mad, guys, it's not about the money. If you're really for the change, you're gonna have people behind you. So find a way, run for office, go and represent your community, represent your district. People are looking at the president, please. That one person that you vote every 4 years and he has only 2 mandates, you really think that he's gonna change everything? We've had them for decades, but they didn't change anything. So now it's time for ourselves to go there.
And saying that the oppression that we experience in this country like prevents us to be successful or to go, like she said, to go and then have position in Congress is really, I think, BS, because I kept asking myself, why is it that after we had a black president, we don't have many black
Yes.
people in Congress, many black
Thank
people
you.
in politics? Like, there is no, I think for
There's
me,
no
like,
barrier.
he breached the obstacles.
Yes.
That was a big success for the black community, for black people in
Mhm.
this country. So what is preventing you to be a congressman, to be a politician,
congresswoman,
to be a congresswoman, to be someone that can lead people?
I think somebody's rebuttal to that might be racism. Like we're still dealing with racism in the same sense that we were, and I think we have to acknowledge as the black community that racism is not as big and as bad as it used to be. And I think once we can come to terms with that and acknowledge that, our eyes will kind of be open to see how how much better it is for us to go out and chase those opportunities that are presented to us. For example, there was a tweet that LeBron James said, and he said something like, "I can't believe that, every time I step out of the door, I'm being hunted.
No,
I can be hunted or like."
As a black man in
hunted
this
down."
country, I
No,
don't
you
even feel
can't
comfortable
First
to
of
go
all,
out.
First of all, LeBron, you have millions and billions of dollars
Thank
as a
you.
successful basketball
Just by
player.
doing
In your gated
Bounce the
community.
ball.
In your gated community, in your mansion, and come on,
You're talking
Like,
about being
bounce-
hunted down.
let's be honest. You know that you have the freedom to leave your house and go to the store and get what you need. You know you have the freedom to go to school and get an education. There's literally laws that had been passed to allow us to be entered, affirmative action, to have entry into getting to the schools of our choice, even though it's a little bit unfair. The laws are a little racist, but we have the ability to get into those schools. So let's stop the BS. Let's stop blaming everything on racism and saying that we're hindered because of racism, because we know racism is not as bad as it used to be. We have to acknowledge
And
that.
to emphasize on that, it's not as bad as it used to be, because before it was not just emotional, it was also physical. We were literally slaves. But today we're not slaves anymore. Like, the physical part has been, if I can say, overcome. But now we still have the emotional part. I honestly believe we haven't healed from what happened to our ancestors. And now we're using it, especially the younger generation, we're using it as a tool now to make other people feel guilty. And also we're using this as just to be victims. And I get it. Like, it's hurtful. We're all hurt with what just happened. And not just what happened, but now that you look back, you're like, it's been happening. But now to differentiate the fact that physically we're not limited to do what we want to do, but maybe emotionally we haven't overcome that hurt or those thoughts or just the oppression in our mind. So maybe that's the thing that we need to overcome at this point, because every time we look, racism, while you actually have the opportunity to go to school. Before, our ancestors didn't have that opportunity. You couldn't even go to a pool and swim with white people. Today, there's no such thing. Today, you can go anywhere without being looked at or looked down like, oh, this is not your place. Your place is over there with the people of color. We don't have that today. We have something else. It might be hidden, and that's why we don't know what it is, and we're not able to really come up with solution. But let's just stop to make it look like it's exactly how it used to be before, because it's not.
To add to what you said, I just want to ask all of us and then the people watching as well, like, why is it, whose fault is it that the Black community hasn't healed emotionally? Because you brought up a very good point of, you know, the emotional aspect, the healing, and I'll even go further and say the mental aspect. And this is my analogy. Once somebody has gone through sexual abuse, right? It's a physical action, first of all, because they're brutalized, they're physically assaulted, and then they suffer that physical aspect. But even when they're free from it, like when it's not happening anymore, when they're free from their oppressor, what they have to deal with for the rest of their life, it's not that physical part, it's the mental aspect. And I just deplore that in this country. I'm going to answer my own question literally, because I think what we have failed to do, we have failed to recognize that the consequences of the physical oppression that we had, like, is a mental, like, it's a trauma, post-traumatic slavery.
I think they know that.
Yeah.
They recognize
So
that.
they recognize that they
don't
have
do anything.
post-slavery post-traumatic slavery syndrome. Okay, so yeah, so you recognize that you have post-traumatic slavery syndrome, but what should we do about it?